On May 3, 2007, a 3-year-old girl disappeared from a holiday apartment in Portugal. There were no signs of forced entry, no witnesses who saw her leave, and no clear explanation for how she vanished. Her name was Madeleine McCann. What followed became one of the most widely reported missing person cases in modern history, a case that would involve international police forces, media scrutiny, global attention, and years of unanswered questions. This is not a story of theories or speculation. This is the documented timeline of what is known and what remains unexplained. Madeleine Beth McCann was born on May 12, 2003, in Leicester, England. She was the eldest child of Kate and Gerry McCann, both medical doctors. Friends and family described Madeleine as bright, affectionate, and confident for her age. In 2007, Madeleine was nearly 4 years old. She had younger twin siblings, Sean and Amelie, who were just under 2 years old at the time. By all available accounts, Madeleine was healthy, well cared for, and deeply loved by her family. There was nothing unusual or concerning about her life prior to the events that would soon unfold. In late April 2007, the McCann family traveled from the United Kingdom to Praia da Luz, a coastal resort town in southern Portugal. They were staying at the Ocean Club Resort, a family-friendly destination popular with British tourists. The McCanns were traveling with a group of friends, many of whom also had young children. The group planned to spend the week relaxing, dining together, and enjoying the resort facilities. Their accommodation was a ground-floor apartment, identified as Apartment 5A. The apartment included a living area, a kitchen, and bedrooms. A sliding patio door opened onto the outside, while the front door faced the street. This layout would later become a critical detail in the investigation. During the holiday, the families followed a routine. During the day, they spent time at the beach, the pool, and the resort's kids club. In the evenings, after putting the children to bed, the adults dined together at a nearby tapas restaurant within the Ocean Club complex. The restaurant was approximately a short walking distance from the McCann apartment. From the restaurant, parts of the apartment complex were visible, though not the inside of the rooms. The adults stated that they took turns checking on their children throughout the evening. This routine had been followed on previous nights without incident. On the day Madeleine disappeared, the family followed their usual schedule. Madeleine and her siblings attended the resort's kids club earlier in the day. There is documented confirmation that Madeleine was present. Later that afternoon, the family returned to the apartment. According to statements, Madeleine asked her mother a question that would later take on significance. She asked why her parents had not come when she and her brother cried the previous night. At the time, nothing appeared out of the ordinary. That evening, the children were put to bed at approximately 7 o'clock p.m. Kate and Gerry McCann left the apartment to join their friends for dinner. Believing their children were asleep and secure, they would return periodically to check. What happened next would change everything. On the evening of May 3, 2007, the McCann family followed the same routine they had used on previous nights. At approximately 7 p.m., Madeleine and her younger twin siblings were put to bed in Apartment 5A. The bedroom window was closed, the curtains were drawn, the front door was locked. Kate and Gerry McCann then walked to the tapas restaurant inside the Ocean Club complex, where they joined their friends. The restaurant was located roughly 50 meters from the apartment. From the table, the group could not see inside the apartment, but they believed the distance was close enough to allow regular checks. At around 8:30 p.m., one of the adults from the group checked on the McCann children. He entered the apartment, observed the bedroom, and later stated that the children appeared to be sleeping. There were no signs of disturbance. At approximately 9:05 p.m., another check was made. Again, nothing unusual was reported. The bedroom door was slightly open. The children appeared undisturbed. These checks were consistent with the group's routine on earlier nights. At approximately 10 o'clock p.m., Kate McCann left the restaurant to check on her children. When she entered Apartment 5A, she immediately noticed something was wrong. The bedroom door was wider open than before. The curtains were open. The window was open. Madeleine was not in her bed. Her blankets and soft toy were still there. The twin siblings were asleep and appeared unharmed. Kate McCann searched the apartment and called out Madeleine's name. There was no response. Kate McCann ran back to the restaurant and informed the group that Madeleine was missing. The adults immediately began searching the surrounding area. They checked nearby streets, gardens, and resort grounds. Staff at the Ocean Club were alerted. Other guests joined the search. Within minutes, the situation escalated from a missing child to an emergency. Local authorities were contacted. Portuguese police arrived later that night. They took initial statements and examined the apartment. At that early stage, there was no clear indication of how Madeleine had disappeared. There were no signs of forced entry. No confirmed eyewitnesses reported seeing Madeleine leave the apartment. No immediate suspects were identified. By the end of the night, it was clear that this was not a routine missing child case. A coordinated search would begin the following morning, when daylight arrived on May 4, 2007. The search for Madeleine intensified. Local police expanded the search area beyond the Ocean Club. Resort officers, volunteers, and resort staff combed nearby streets, vacant lots, beaches, and surrounding terrain. Search dogs were brought in, flyers were distributed, roads were checked. Despite the scale of the effort, no trace of Madeleine was found that morning. From the beginning, investigators faced a critical problem. There was no clear crime scene. Apartment 5A became the focus of the investigation. Police examined doors, windows, and surrounding areas. There were no obvious signs of a struggle. No clear forensic evidence initially pointed to how Madeleine had left the apartment. The open window drew attention, but investigators could not confirm whether it had been opened before or after Madeleine's disappearance. The lack of physical evidence made it difficult to determine whether the case involved an abduction, an accident, or something else entirely. In the first days, Portuguese authorities treated the case as a missing child investigation. They questioned resort staff, guests, and residents of the area. Witness statements were collected. Some individuals reported seeing a man carrying a child near the resort on the night Madeleine disappeared, but descriptions varied and could not be conclusively verified. At this stage, no arrests were made. The case remained open and uncertain. News of Madeleine's disappearance spread rapidly. Within days, the case received international coverage. Television crews arrived in Praia da Luz. Journalists from multiple countries reported on the search. Public interest grew at an unprecedented rate for a missing child case. This attention brought increased awareness, but also intense pressure. Investigators now worked under global scrutiny. Every development, or lack of one, was widely reported. As the days passed, authorities in the United Kingdom became involved. British police offered assistance. International cooperation began to take shape. Despite expanded resources, the investigation struggled with the same central problem. There was still no confirmed evidence explaining how Madeleine disappeared. The case was moving quickly into uncharted territory. By mid-May 2007, Madeleine McCann's disappearance had become a global news story. Major television networks, newspapers, and online outlets covered the case daily. Her image appeared on front pages around the world. What had begun as a local investigation was now unfolding under constant international attention. This level of exposure was unprecedented for a missing child case in Portugal. Every development, confirmed or unconfirmed, was rapidly reported. The media attention brought both benefits and challenges. On one hand, public awareness increased dramatically. Tips began arriving from multiple countries. On the other hand, the intensity of coverage created pressure on investigators and those closest to the case. Rumors and unverified claims began circulating alongside factual reporting. In some instances, speculation blurred with confirmed information. Authorities repeatedly stated that not all reports being published reflected verified facts. As the case dominated headlines, public discussion expanded beyond official statements. Online forums, opinion pieces, and televised debates examined every detail. From the apartment layout to the evening routine, different theories were discussed publicly. It is important to note that theories discussed in public discourse were not conclusions drawn by investigators. At this stage, no individual had been charged with any crime related to Madeleine's disappearance. The investigation remained ongoing. As weeks passed, investigators reviewed earlier evidence and witness statements. Additional forensic examinations were conducted. Authorities emphasized that the absence of clear physical evidence continued to limit definitive conclusions. During this period, the case entered a more complex phase. Multiple investigative possibilities were considered, but none had been proven. Officials stressed that the case was still open and active. The constant presence of cameras and journalists placed enormous pressure on everyone involved. Investigators faced scrutiny over their decisions. The family remained under intense public observation, despite the scale of attention. One critical fact remained unchanged: Madeleine McCann had not been found. And the central questions how she disappeared and what happened afterward remained unanswered. As the investigation continued into late 2007, Portuguese authorities began reassessing earlier evidence and statements. Investigators emphasized that the case remained open and that multiple possibilities were still being examined. At this stage, the lack of physical evidence continued to be a major obstacle. No confirmed forensic proof had established how Madeleine left the apartment or what happened afterward. During the investigation, certain individuals were formally designated as persons of interest under Portuguese law. This designation did not mean guilt. It indicated that authorities believed further questioning or legal representation was necessary as part of the investigation. Importantly, being named a person of interest did not result in charges or convictions. Authorities repeatedly stated that no definitive conclusions had been reached. Forensic tests were conducted on items from the apartment and surrounding areas. Some results were inconclusive. Investigators acknowledged that forensic findings alone could not establish a clear sequence of events. Experts later stated that the available evidence was insufficient to confirm any single theory beyond doubt. No forensic result definitively proved how Madeleine disappeared. Over time, cooperation between Portuguese and British authorities expanded. British police reviewed case files and investigative steps. Years later, the case was formally reviewed by British investigators, who concluded that the evidence did not support a closed resolution. The disappearance was officially classified as an unresolved missing person case. No individual has ever been convicted for a crime related to Madeleine's disappearance. Authorities consistently emphasized several key points. Madeleine McCann has never been found. No definitive cause of disappearance has been established. No individual has been legally proven responsible. The case remains open under active review. Speculation, public opinion, and media narratives have never replaced official findings. The investigation remains based on evidence and the absence of it. As the years passed, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann did not fade from public memory. Investigations were reviewed, evidence was re-examined, new information was assessed. Despite renewed efforts at different points in time, the outcome remained the same. Madeleine was never located. No confirmed account of her disappearance was established, and no court has ever determined responsibility for her disappearance. Officially, the case remains classified as an open missing person investigation. Over time, law enforcement agencies revisited the case files. Advances in forensic science allowed investigators to reanalyze existing material. International cooperation continued, with authorities sharing information and reviewing leads. Despite these efforts, officials consistently stated that the available evidence was insufficient to reach definitive conclusions. No explanation has been proven beyond doubt. The absence of physical evidence has continued to limit investigative certainty. There are several documented reasons why the case has remained unresolved. No confirmed witnesses observed Madeleine leaving the apartment. No verified forensic evidence explains how she disappeared. No confirmed crime scene has ever been established. No individual has been convicted. In connection with the case, investigators have acknowledged that the narrow time window and lack of physical trace present exceptional challenges. As time passes, memories fade and evidence becomes harder to recover. Beyond investigations and headlines, the disappearance represents a continuing absence. A child was never found, questions were never answered. For those directly affected, The passage of time has not brought closure. Authorities have repeatedly stated that unresolved cases remain active because certainty matters and because assumptions cannot replace proof. More than a decade later, the same questions remain. How did Madeleine leave the apartment? Was she taken, or did she leave unnoticed? Why was no clear evidence ever found? These questions have no confirmed answers. What is known and what is not must be clearly separated. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann remains one of the most widely known and resolved cases in modern history. And until proven otherwise, it remains exactly that, unresolved. This documentary has presented only verified timelines, official statements, and confirmed investigative facts. No theories were presented as truth. No conclusions were drawn without evidence. Some stories end with answers. Others remain open. This is one of them.